Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Painfully Fabulous, the podcast. Today, me and Christine wanted to do a good rant about the Take Care of Maya trial now that the jurors are currently in deliberation.
So, the Kowalski family, their claims against the hospital are for medical malpractice, battery, false imprisonment for 2 to 3 different occasions, not for the entire time, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and alleged fraud.
The Kowalski family is seeking a total of $220 million. $55 million is compensatory damages, and $165 million are from punitive damages if they're awarded. Let's rant.
Yes. Where do we start? Did I talk over you there? Sorry if I did.
That's fine. We're going to talk over each other a lot. Again, we're not professionals. We could start off wherever. Um, can I start off by saying Mr. Anderson? God love him. He's not the best, but he cares. He's so
Well,
hard to follow, but he cares.
well, and I think for me, his best suit was for cross examination.
Oh yeah.
uh, he just talks too long, too slow on opening, closing statements, those kinds of things. But his cross exams I found really good. I was like, well, there's a half decent lawyer.
Right?
Yes.
Um, I want to mention also maybe that we were following every minute of this trial so closely and taking notes upon notes upon notes and marking when to take pictures and screenshots and trying to make every video or every day a new video for this, but we just couldn't. It was too much.
Well, just sitting for the 9 hours a day watching it, I mean, half the time I would scribble notes and I get so consumed with it and go, oh my gosh, what did I just forget to write down? So yeah, it was very interesting though. There's still a couple days I have to refresh on, but yeah, it just got to be too much. So this is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Um, talking how we actually feel about it. I have to say that I'm totally biased. I would not be a good juror, um, because we know what she's gone through, right?
Biased because of course we have her condition and I don't know, but the hospital does help a lot of people. It does have a lot of specialty departments, and a lot of children's lives have been saved because of that. But if they're going to continuously treat people the way that they do, that's dangerous. And I think something should be done.
Well, the thing that bothers me the most is that they still, to this day, say she doesn't have CRPS.
A lot of people do.
And for me, that's a big deal because I believe she does. I don't believe it was ever conversion disorder. I don't believe it's Munchausen by proxy. Um, and I think that's a big disservice to her for sure. With the hospital, a couple things I'm going to bring up is the hardest thing for me was this is not the first time that CPS has been involved with Dr. Sally Smith. She has a long history of this happening, other lawsuits coming, others that have been paid off or settled. I say paid off, but and then secondly, while Maya was in the hospital was in immediate jeopardy, is what it's called, um, through their governing body, where they could have lost funding because they weren't following protocols and guidelines for patients. So that there really worries me because I don't. It's so hard because Maya says one thing, they say another, but a 9-year-old girl, I don't think will make up some of the things she said.
Of the information that we're being shown right now, the evidence is proving that these things did happen. She really did defecate all over herself. She really was locked in that room for what, 48 hours under video supervision. Kathy Beatty really did do very inappropriate things to her. Sally Smith still doesn't know the name of her condition. The lawyers still don't know the name of her condition. The hospital still doesn't know the name of her condition, and yet they still treat patients who have this condition.
I know.
Shit, I'm sorry.
Well, and there's some of the doctors like there claim to know at least the name, and because she was diagnosed with RSD first, the former name, um, they still didn't get it right. It was RDS. I'm like, you can't even get the initials right. So how much do you really know?
It's 3 letters, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
That being said, also, it's important to note that the original documentation of RSD, which is a former name of CRPS, the original documentation of it in Maya's medical file was from 2015 from John Hopkins All Children's Hospital. They suspected that she had it. Hey, I'm going to cut this out later, but I'm just realizing this is kind of like my situation. My family doctor was the first one who said, "Hey, it looks like you have CRPS." And then all these years later down the road, she still refuses to say that I have CRPS. She just notes it as arm pain.
Do not cut that out.
Uh,
Mm-mm.
but yeah, that my family doctor. It was within weeks too. She's like, "Oh, I think you have CRPS. You're showing the symptoms for it," and sent me into the pain specialist. He confirmed it. But because after the first year of treatment, I wasn't cured, she stopped thinking that I had it.
And see, that's where I think the problem lies too with Maya, because she didn't have the normal, for lack of a better word, symptoms. She had allodynia, she had the dystonia, but
Severe.
because, right, temperature change, but because she didn't have that continuously like they wanted to see, you know, that's why the defense is trying to say, well, she didn't have this, she didn't have that. Well, that's because it's not consistent all the time with certain people, right?
I thought it was very important. Anderson said a few times, CRPS does not paralyze a patient. It doesn't make you unable to use your extremities. It makes using your extremities extremely difficult, uncomfortable, painful. Your range of motion does get limited. The
Yeah,
CRPS is so weird, man.
I know. And the other thing I found difficult in the trial is the defense trying to say that they saved her life, basically. I know. That was very difficult for me to hear, because just because they didn't agree with the treatment of ketamine and they didn't agree with the amounts of ketamine, the coma showed to work. You know, she was improving, she was in the pool, she was doing so much better. And just because she had a relapse doesn't mean that it didn't work, right? Um, and whatever, Dr. Hannah, they tried to show Dr. Hannah gave so much ketamine when he was at his top level and everything else, and it wasn't working. But that does not mean that it didn't work in the coma. It didn't mean that it wouldn't help if she had another coma, or whatever she chose to do. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but after DCF, um, after Beata passed away, they said she couldn't have ketamine again. And that, I think that was for 3 months.
Until
And,
April.
right. And then after April, you know what? She could do what she wanted. She could have whatever treatment she wanted. Uh, to the defense is saying this, right? Well, if you look at someone that's got PTSD because she was held against her will in the hospital. Her mother committed suicide because of her illness, really. It's probably in her mind, right?
Yeah.
And you think she's going to want to go back to these doctors and have ketamine again and not fear that something bad's going to happen to her, you
Right.
know? And then yeah, she did amazing. She did awesome. She's got willpower, she's got strength, and she did really well. And like Mr. Anderson said, probably to prove to her mother, I can do this, mom. You know, without her mom being there, she's doing this for her mother.
And she is her mother's daughter too. So that strength, that determination, oh, 1 second here for Jack's story. Jack mentioned when him and Kyle went fishing one time. Kyle's fishing hook accidentally caught a baby alligator, and the mother alligator came out and started trying to attack Jack and Kyle. They had to jump on a picnic table, and they were terrified. But that was what Beata was like. Jack said Beata was a mother alligator protecting her child. She might be kind of scary. She might be kind of aggressive, but that's what she was doing, was just protecting her.
Yeah,
Ugh,
totally. And Maya has that same strength.
absolutely. That's
And
where I was going with it, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I believe that it was almost paying homage to her mother,
Yeah.
the strength and everything else, like because she went through with no ketamine, no medication, and the pain was excruciating, but she managed to do it. And I sent you a video the one time where she's sitting in court and she whispers to her dad just how bad the pain is in her legs, right? And just seeing her mouth those words, it's like you sit there, and I'm guilty of doing this too. You sit there and you put on your happy face,
Yeah.
and you grin and bear the pain until you get home is when you really break down and you really allow the pain to come in. And people think, oh, she's fine. Look at her. She's sitting there. She's fine. But she's in pain.
You're touching on something really interesting in all honesty, 'cause, this morning I look at myself in the mirror and I was like, "Oof, you gotta record today. How am I gonna get there?" Because I only wear makeup and stuff like that when we record. We might look like we're okay, but we're not. I'll actually maybe share a picture here about what I normally look like Monday through Friday, every minute that we're not trying to record, and it's just God love Maya for even getting dressed and going into court. That takes a lot of strength.
Oh, and listening to them talk to her, like, or talk about her, sorry, about how she was in the hospital and how, they didn't think this about her and that. I mean, at one point she did leave the courtroom just the last couple days or whatever. And I'm thinking, I would be gone way before she was. Honestly.
I screamed at the television when the guy was doing his closing arguments and it showed a video of what did he say? This is who the people at Johns Hopkins really are. And it showed a video of Maya playing the piano with a doctor. I really like I screamed at the TV. I'm like, "You monsters, how could you do that?" Because the piano was a personal thing for Maya. She said she wasn't able to do it properly without her mom and stuff like that. Like, oh, those
Yeah.
closing arguments from the hospital, those were awful. I really disliked that, and I worry about the future because of that.
Oh, and Shapiro, Mr. Shapiro, the prosecutor's lawyer. I don't personally care for him or Mr. Hunter, but because of the way they go about their questioning, and Mr. Shapiro, I find, is the worst for things like that. Um, and he started out thanking the Kowalskis for being patient, and uh, I was just like, okay, I'm like, fast forward, because I didn't want to even listen to him.
They're wonderful corporate lawyers, but how do they sleep at nighttime? And I really mean that because these lawyers have been thinking about it nonstop for the past 9 weeks, and they're hearing all of these things that they're not even allowing the jury to hear. The sexual thing,
Oh, I know.
I don't, that really bothers me because
I know.
she was a little girl. She was traumatized. A doctor comes in. I don't even like even saying this. Asked her to take a peek, looked at her private parts, pulled her pants back up, and walked out. No, nothing. Maya brings this up here in court, and they say, "Sorry, if you bring that up, it's got to go to a mistrial. So don't let the jury hear any of it."
Part of that, I think, is sad, but it goes to the fact that they didn't put in a claim for sexual abuse or sexual assault. Sorry.
I understand that, and
Eh,
I understand jury selection and stuff like that, how they'd have to ask the proper questions. It's unfair. This whole situation is just
Right.
unfair.
And Maya didn't bring that up until recently,
Yeah.
right? So she didn't. I don't even. I think she did say something about why she didn't.
She brought it up immediately after it happened. She talked about it with Dr. Kazakhstein or Kazenstein, and it was in Dr. Kazenstein's notes too that Maya had inappropriate conduct. And she said that because nothing happened after that, like she tried to go to authorities, she tried to notify them, and nothing happened. So she figured, hey, nothing happened. I should just live with this.
Right. And Dr. Kazenstein tried to make it sound like it was done at another institution,
She definitely did.
and it's, I don't know, some of the things their witnesses said. Now, I have to say, there was a lovely nurse, an RN bedside nurse that I forget her name, but was so good with Maya, and everything she said was awesome.
I can't think of her name right now
I know.
either. Is she the one who got the Daisy Award? I think it
Yeah.
was for taking her to the bathroom on
Yes.
time.
Yeah, I know. And even in, was it closing arguments or the last day? But they claimed that there was no. Oh, it must have been closing arguments, because he claimed that there was no video footage of Maya soiling herself and stuff. But they never claimed that. The father said that he was there cleaning her up from that when Sally Smith walked in.
Yeah,
Right. So it was a whole different. And I find that that's what they've done a lot in this trial, is the plaintiffs have misconstrued things that have been said.
she did say, I believe, that during those 48 hours in that room when the commode was next to her, that she did soil herself multiple times. I I do remember that.
I know, I've
Again,
watched so much.
festivals, don't quote me, ladies and gents.
I know, it's like, and this has been going on for so many weeks, right? You mix up things from one day to the next, and but I don't know. I just feel so sorry for her, because she's gone through a lot.
She has, the whole family has. I do think now, thinking back about it, the Take Care of Maya, the movie itself, I wish that was able to cover things better because they missed a lot of the crucial story. It's, I don't know, it's heart-wrenching. The movie itself is heart-wrenching too, but knowing both sides of everything.
They could probably only do so much because of the lawsuit.
Yeah, okay, you're right.
Yeah, so they probably didn't want to get into too much because of it. But so, like, things like Kathy Beatty in that phone call, where they're trying to say that it was Charlotte Laporte that was.
It's her voice.
I know, and it's funny because I think, and this is just my opinion, but when they play um, Kathy Beatty's recording to Beata on the phone when she's saying, "I'm calling about the transfer, blah, blah, blah." And then they play the recording of Kathy Beatty saying, "Mom, Mom, we can't talk about the judge. We can't do this." That voice is exactly the same.
Exactly. It's got an accent too.
Yeah, it's like, "Ma," like, it's got that whiny,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whereas Miss Laporte, when she was on the stand, her voice wasn't like that at all. And it irritates me to the point, because I would hate to say that they're lying.
They are. They're totally covering their own asses. It's making
Yeah,
me
like, I would have to agree. Now, I know there's lots of people out there. Some
yeah,
of the I know some of the comments in this is driving me, and I look at it from the perspective that most of those comments are people that don't know what CRPS is.
like most medical professionals as well, so you're not alone. For more information on CRPS, please go to our website that we've created. It's available for free for doctors and patients. I'll put the link in the description, but it's nice and easy, conquercrps.com. Please go get some information, educate yourself, educate others. We need to fight for Beata and make sure this doesn't happen again because it happens almost every day to an extent to a CRPS warrior around the world. We're fighting for yous.
Absolutely. No, it's so true. And we need to get all the education we can out there.
Absolutely. Yeah,
This, I have to say, is, it's a sad case, but I have to thank the Kowalskis personally for getting the name CRPS out there.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Because although it's a different scenario, um, at least CRPS is being told to people,
It's being
because
talked about.
talked about. Yes, thank you. That's the words I'm looking for. Yeah, that's the whole CRPS brain, people. But
Did you know?
exactly. But yeah, uh, I don't know. I just, if anybody's watching the trial or has any comments or opinions, please write them below because we want to come back. We want to discuss this more, especially when jury deliberations come in. And we'd love to hear from you, just what your perspective is. And even if it's not the same as ours, just comment below because,
As we talk, this is where we're at.
ugh,
We're
and
waiting.
I don't even know if this is if that's a good thing or a bad thing because the longer they deliberate, it's like, what's happening? Is that negative or positive? I just wonder because sometimes they say, oh, if they don't take very long in deliberating, it's quick, it's good. They know, yes, they know they're gonna, and then the longer it takes, it's like we get more worried and blah blah blah. But I still think that number one juror that was a former police officer, I still think he's a great juror for asking.
Absolutely.
Oh, for people that don't know, the plaintiffs tried to have him removed as a juror at the very end of the trial, saying that he had already made up his mind and his opinion, and it was for the plaintiffs and not the defense. And thank goodness the judge didn't allow it. But jurors are allowed to make opinions on witnesses and what they've said.
They're not supposed to make opinions on who wins or loses until they see all evidence,
That's
but they're questioning both sides. Juror number 1, I find, was questioning both sides relatively evenly.
and
Opinion.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That's another thing with technology. We got to learn how to talk without interrupting each other. But with um, sorry, with witness or jury members, yes, they can't make a final decision on who wins or loses, for lack of a better term, but they can make decisions on witnesses whether they think they're credible or they're not credible, right? And I think some of his questions were trying to, ask the questions in a way like a law enforcement officer to find out if, yeah, who's credible, who's not credible, who do I believe, who don't I believe, that kind of thing. I don't think he had his mind made up for the whole case, like the defense wanted us to believe, right? So,
I wanna take note and mention of the
uh-oh.
it makes me laugh because the judge really had to ask. Okay, so the judge really had to ask if he read the juror's note correctly when it came back. And I'll figure it out and I'll type it up and put it right here for you. But it went along the lines of like, y'all better figure it out or you ain't gonna make a cent for gas to court or something along those lines. And it was really ridiculous. The comments on the live feed were like, oh my goodness, is this really the hands of that the Kowalski families are in? And oh, it
I
was
know. Well, that's like the question before that the jury had was like, um, the judge had to change the last word because it said, um, I can't figure this stuff out. So he changed the stuff word, right? Um, and it was just like, if I was in a jury, I wouldn't even, if I was asked a question, I would never put a swear word in it. Like,
right.
I would be diplomatic and very nice. And, but yeah, so I too would love to know who the jurors are, but. Mm.
But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, like juror number 1 and a couple others who have some regular questions, perhaps they'll be able to persuade these other ones. But on a naive note, what happens if they can't agree?
Hung jury.
And then
Hung jury. I believe with a hung jury, I don't know if it goes back to the judge or if they have to go to trial again. I think they have to do a trial again on a hung jury. Now that could be different in Florida. I don't know. But the other thing that I don't know if people realize is that, so it took a long time for them to get to court because they judges weren't allowing them for some reason. I don't know the whole legal aspect of it, but um, I just recently found out that Judge Carroll in this case is he agreed to do this trial, and in anywhere in the states there is no law for suicide, for I'm not sure if it's damages or whatever you want to call it, but like in a lawsuit. Um, so this trial is, no matter how it goes, is going to be used in previous, like other trials. This is a way of making a new law. I guess the example I heard was, so before we used to call it battery, and then what happened was things would get worse and there was no law against it. So a judge would do the case and it became assault. So now we have battery and we have assault. But that was because a judge decided to do a court case, and that's how that law got written. So that's, I guess that's the way that the laws get written. I didn't know that either, but so that's what's happening in this in regards to the suicide with Beata,
Wow.
because there is no law. So from another lawyer that I was listening to, he said that this will go to appeals regardless because there's no law for it.
Another thing too that I really appreciate our judge. He has gone above and beyond with being respectful to both parties. And yesterday, I believe it was, where he mentioned how much support he's had from other judges and like other lawyers. He's having access to these special lawyers, and it's pretty cool. He even said something about calling a judge on a Saturday night at 9 o'clock over questions with the Kowalski case and how to properly handle it. Like, he's genuinely trying to abide by the law and to do right for the future, which is really amazing, Christine. I had no idea that he's trying to finally create like a standard or a law to
Y-
follow for the future.
Yeah, so that I found really interesting, but it worries me that once it goes to appeal, the Supreme Court's not, will overturn, or if there's anything to overturn, but because there is no law, right?
I can't go there in my head. I can't think. Honestly, that just it really worries me for what's gonna happen if this just doesn't go positively. I'm gonna feel so defeated and crushed personally, and I know I shouldn't, and it's so foolish, but it's just like CRPS needs a win, and
Yeah,
medical community needs to be held responsible for their wrongdoings because they've done severe wrong and severe harm. Um, there's also the argument too that they were just abiding by the court rulings and stuff like that. But I'm going to disagree. It seems like they were interpreting the court rulings, and that again very dangerous. But who am
yeah.
I?
Oh, I agree with you, and I think too, with the way Judge Carroll's doing the the process here, and how he's broken it down into different verdicts, I guess if you want to call it that. Um, he's done that too, so that, what, if it goes to appeal, which he probably knows is going to, the Supreme Court has the option to just overturn the suicide claim. He can. They don't have to overturn, Maya's pain and suffering and all that kind of thing, which is, it's good too. I just, I'm worried because I think, who knows, the Supreme Court might not want to make a standard for suicide like this. But I really do think that they caused the, how did they put it? They put it, the mother's, not mother's instinct, but it was, there was a word. Do you remember what the word was, Kristen? That the reason that oh, an impulse. I think it was mother impulse to do to commit suicide. Um,
One of them said something about how it's a natural thing, like you're mentioning. Say a mother sees a car is about to hit their child. Very few mothers are just going to stand there and watch it happen. Majority of mothers are going to jump, and fathers. I'm so sorry. Majority of mothers and fathers are going to jump out in front of that moving vehicle to try to save their child, knowing that it's going to take their life. And in a way, that's kind of what Beata did.
so this case is so complex. There's so much that goes into it. So many different opinions. There's so much more to talk about. But I'm sure we've been on long enough, and we don't want to keep you here all day. So, like I said, comment below, hit the like and subscribe, even the little notification bell, because that'll give you a notification that we're going to talk again. Um, And so until next time, stay painfully fabulous.